Hello everyone, it's David again. Today we're going to talk about genomic revolution and seed. Talking about genomic revolution, it really sounds like a very scientific and advanced term. And normal people, they just can't figure out how it's related to such a simple matter as seeds. Because, seeds are everywhere. You can just get them at Costco, buy them at flower stores, and farmers, they got their seeds from local suppliers, and they look the same from the food that we eat. Let me explain. After this video, you will find out how important seed is in global economy, and how seed companies like Monsanto's are using seed to make billions of farmers work for them and generate huge profits. So first, I will introduce the seed market. The seed market has a very high profit margin. From Monsanto's 2017 quarter 3 report, it has a gross profit margin of 47%. And that is very high considering average agricultural profit margin ranges from 10 to 20%. This kind of profit margin belongs to a very high-tech field like semiconductors, and even iPhones cannot earn such huge profit margins. So this tells us something. This tells us that the seed is very technological advanced, and second, it has a very high barrier of entry. From 2020, CR5, which means the top 5 companies, the biggest ones that control the seed market globally, has a dominance of market share over 85% or plus, because recently Monsanto's has been acquired by Bayer Chemicals, which further consolidated their market share to over 40%. And it requires a lot of scientific research, ranging from 8 to 10 years before a company can come up with a successful seed product, because seed needs a lot of genetic modification, and there's a very complex approval program, because this is something that we eat, so they want to make sure that it's safe and it does not have any harmful substance or genes inside that could harm the consumers. Third, it has a very high dependence. This is for the farmers. Now, farmers purchase 95 to 100% of their seeds from wholesale seed distributors. So before, farmers used to get their seeds by claiming some part of their harvest and then storing it for next year, and they will plant that seed back to the field. But once genetic modified crop and hybrid crops started being invented and came to the market, it just destroyed this system of farmers storing seeds that has kept going for thousands of years. Right now, 90 to 100% of farmers directly buy their seeds from distributors. They do not save part of their harvest to be the seed anymore. And last one is the high regulation of the seed market. So the seed market has served America's national interest for a long time. For example, when NAFTA was signed, cheap U.S. GMO corns entered Mexico, and the corn from U.S. is 50% or more cheaper than local Mexican produced corn. So this has destroyed the Mexican agricultural economy, and practically U.S. government is using this as a leverage against all the other countries that have a very big agricultural output, like Brazil or India. So if U.S. refuses to export seeds to their company or to their country, their agricultural output will drastically reduce by at least 50%, because they do not have the seeds anymore, and they need to like harvest it from the old ones, which is less productive. And government also involved in protecting the intellectual properties of the seed companies, because in a seed there contains a special gene variants that the seed company has designed for 8 to 10 years, right? So their intellectual property, and farmers cannot just replant that seed. They need to buy new seeds. And if farmers, they don't want to pay that price, then there comes the enforcement. So the seed companies will sue the farmers to court and ask them to compensate at least 10 to 100 times their stolen value of the seed. And this requires a lot of government cooperation. So right now the government is cooperating with big seeds companies and to really to protect their interests instead of the farmers. Second, we're going to talk about GMO seeds compared to hybrid seeds. GMO, as we all know, is genetically modified seeds, and hybrid is a traditional methods of increasing the yield of seeds, where it does not involve active genetic modifying. So it has a higher yield, and by higher yield, I did not mean they have mega corn. They actually have higher yield compared to the hybrid seeds because they are protected against insects and natural disasters like droughts that might drastically reduce field's output. And they're also low maintenance, so farmers do not have to really take care of this field compared to the hybrid seeds, where farmers have to actively spend a lot of labor to spread fertilizers, pesticides, all that. The genetic modified seeds are a lot more pest resistant, and they're a lot more stronger actually. So the hybrid seeds, their advantages are they are proclaimed safer for food. In many countries, like in China, their market has not been opened to genetically modified, and their people are afraid of this kind of crop that might have negative effects over generations. U.S. is really open about it, and right now over 95% of all corn is produced in GMO. So we're eating a lot of GMOs, and we cannot escape that in our life because a lot of the hogs or the pigs were fed with GMO corns. So really, U.S. is a fully genetically modified country, but in China it's still very conservative, and the only approved strain of GMO has been cotton that has been planted. And it preserves biodiversity because one farmer proclaims that he planted 100 variants of wheat in his field because he wants the field to be natural and pest resistant. Because with 100 variants, then one single strain of disease cannot really spread across the field. So this preserves a lot of local biodiversity because GMO is really one factory produced seeds. It's like clones, the whole field. You know, they have the same heights. It's really a magic sight. Last, GMO seeds, free seeds, are claimed to be more valuable because they are more healthy. That's what the farmers are trying to market. So a lot of local farms, they are producing these GMO-free seeds, natural seeds, and they're turning it to flour and then to bakeries, and they'll sell it to city folks because they would like their breads to be GMO-free. Where some people are allergic to GMOs. So there's actually been a pretty high-end market for these kind of products. Now let's talk about Monsanto's business model. It has a very dark history. Monsanto's, it used to be the producer and inventor of orange agent. It's a kind of a chemical that U.S. Army used in the Vietnam War, and they would use the plane to spread that orange agent all over the forest where Viet Congs hide. and this caused massive deforestation, and the chemical effects pass on to humans, to local inhabitants, and right now it's still poisoning parts of Vietnam where people have suffered from this genetic disease. However, we should give him credit as the leader of genetic revolution. Although it did not invent genetic modified crops, it has been a major pusher for the genetic revolution on agriculture, so we shouldn't give him credit. So let's explore, how does Monsanto's make so much money and control the markets? So first, they have very high R&D, of course using their chemical profits. That's kind of dirty money, which makes sure they have the best genetic modified seeds. And since they are chemical producers, they sell their own brands of weed killers, pesticides, fertilizers, along with your high yield seeds. So this is like a package deal. And then they, since their crops have higher yield and farmers favors GMO over hybrid, they started gaining market dominance, and this has really turned to be very profitable. Since they are a big company now, they start to buy out local seed distributors. That was happening in India, where Monsanto has acquired its largest seed dealer and integrated as a part of the Monsanto seed distribution system in India. And it started giving out cheap samples, basically, to all the farmers in India. And of course, people are immediately hooked to their GMO because they've never seen a crop so resistant to all of the natural occurring disasters and yield so much. So farmers made a lot of money the first year and the second year, and they started relying on the GMO seeds. And then Monsanto has a lot of government connections, so they formed super PACs to donate or give a lot of campaigning funds for politicians. In exchange, the politician will support Monsanto's efforts to expand globally with their GMO business. So as you can see, I drew this picture. Monsanto's is this guy here wearing the sunglasses, putting out the bait, where the bait is 1 year supply of free GMO seeds. And a lot of local fishes, they're eating on that bait. Farmers should know disaster is coming for them. And then what's happening is Monsanto's raised the price of their genetic modified seeds. And some farmers might try to resist by asking their government, but the government's already bought. Some of them try to steal a part of the Monsanto's seeds for replanting next year, but this is actually illegal, and Monsanto's have hired private contractors, investigators, and also asked local police to investigate these kind of intellectual property infringements, and they will sue the farmers and take them to court and make them pay 10 to 100% of the seeds price. So many farmers, they're afraid of this big corporation, and they start to they just need to accept the high price of seeds. As you can see from this chart, the seed price have quadrupled over 20 years, while the crop price for maize or for corn has relatively stayed stable. So really, the seed price is eating away farmers' profits, and that's how Monsanto was able to make all the farmers work for them for free. So at last, I want to explore, are there a more ethical way for genetically modified seed companies to do their business? Right now, I think the best way would be to give farmers a larger cut. That will solve a lot of the problems and controversy regarding Monsanto's, because really it has exploited the farmers a bit too much. And if they would just give the farmers 20% bonus, they might not complain so much. Also, countries who like to reduce their dependence on American-produced seeds, they need to start building up their local GMO seed production capability so they can have more bargaining power when there's a seed shortage. That'll be all for the seed war. I hope you have learned something about global seed supply and how Monsanto is able to let all the farmers work for him.